still instead.
Yeah, something.
But there we go. Also, the original Dune director from 1984, David Lynch, he stated that he has, quote, zero interest in Dune 2021, end quote. He cited that his issues with the new movie have nothing to do with director Denis Villeneuve, but with his own painful memories of making the 1984 version. He said, quote, because it was a heartache for me. It was a failure, and I didn't have final cut, end quote. What do you
Oh
think about
man.
that type of like artist?
Release the Lynch cut.
Yes.
Oh,
Please.
can you imagine going back to a movie made in 1984 and releasing a director's cut?
I mean, they did it with Superman 2 many years later.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's not unheard of.
That's how fresh that
Uh,
still seems to be, though, for David Lynch. Like, not even the
yeah,
same executives are working there anymore that affected his thing. It's the same studio, though.
right,
It's Dune. I think it'd be too much of like, well, what if, if he watches it? Like, that could have been what I wanted to make.
right. Well, I am kind of curious though to find his thoughts or to hear his thoughts on how they did, honestly. Like I understand why he's not interested, but it'd be cool. That would be a really cool like Blu-ray extra to have
Yeah.
like his commentary during the movie and have that as an option.
Hopefully he gets around to it. If not, I totally get it. Kind of like how Snyder did
Yeah.
not want to see a single frame of the Justice League. He never saw it, and I don't think he still
Well,
has.
neither did I, so it's fine.
There you go. And also, Dune is Warner Brothers' biggest opening of the pandemic, even while participating in the studio's simultaneous HBO Max release program. It's also the biggest opening weekend of director Denis Villeneuve's career. Worldwide so far, Dune has now taken $292 million, which is great considering all of those factors. And I know they said like this was Denis' biggest opening. He's not exactly a blockbuster director, and I will give lots of credit to Warner Brothers though for like not hiring your typical, well, this guy has made a movie that made $700 million, so let's get him on Dune. They got a guy that does sci-fi well, even though Blade Runner 2049 didn't do as well as they wanted it to. They were like, well,
Yeah.
here's Dune, and they gave him a pretty modest budget, and it's a gorgeous film to look at, so it still ended up working.
Yeah, no, I think it worked really well. He did an excellent job directing. I think it was a really well directed movie. I think the performances that he was able to get were really, really great. Um, God, I'm still not used to seeing numbers like that and it being like the biggest release for this studio. It just seems weird. Like it just seems like a really small number, but I mean,
Right.
change of the times, you know?
Yeah, post pandemic and whatnot. I think it's great. I'm glad that we're getting a Dune Part 2. I know there's so much we can hyper dissect with the movie itself, but just kind of rounding out our thoughts on the film, because I'm sure it's something that will come up over the next 2 years until we get Dune Part 2. Was there anything else you wanted to particularly discuss about the movie, or maybe your summary of the film itself? Would you recommend it to someone that maybe isn't into certain things, or who do you see this movie being for?
If you're into sci-fi that has more plot to it rather than just special effects, I think you'd really enjoy the movie. If you want to see things blow up, it has a little bit of that, but that's definitely not the focus.
Hmm.
So that would kind of be my caveat when recommending it to people. It kind of depends on what they like.
I would personally recommend if you I don't know if Arrival's on HBO Max, but that's probably the closest to this movie from what he's made. I would say if you enjoyed that, you will like Dune. They both require, quite a bit of like, all right, well, what does that mean? Where does this all tie in? There is a little bit of
Yeah.
jumping around in Arrival. It's almost like the audience is getting certain visions of the future, so is the character, oddly enough.
Yeah, that's fair. That
So
that's pretty fair. That I would say that's pretty accurate as well.
So if you like The Rival, watch Dune. You'll probably enjoy it. If you are more on that side of like, I mainly like the popcorn stuff. Nothing wrong with it at all. But if I like Star Wars, I like, the MCU movies, all that stuff. You may not like Dune. Like Scott, for example, on Discord, he was like, it looked like a movie I wouldn't enjoy, and I was like, yeah, based on what you've liked in the past, you probably wouldn't like Dune also.
Yeah, that's
So yeah,
yeah. Well, if a lot of people like it, Scott doesn't like it. So,
Is that how it goes?
generally speaking, no, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, knowing the movies that he enjoys, I don't think this one would be for him. I think he's right on that, and that's something I got to give Scott a lot of credit for. He's pretty good at picking out things that he's just probably not going to enjoy.
Yeah, he has an interesting take on like when he goes. He's like, if the trailer gets me, then I'm gonna go see it. But if I don't like the trailer, then I'm not. Like he has ride or die with the trailer.
Yeah, and see, I'm the opposite. I really don't care about trailers that much. Like if it's a movie that I'm kind of looking forward to, I'll watch it, but I'm not gonna watch it or not watch it based on the trailer.
Yeah, there's like very few movies like Morbius, for example. I was gonna see because of Jared Leto, regardless, and it's made by Sony, and they do Marvel pretty well. Or this
Right.
one, for example, I didn't have to see any Dune trailers to know. Well, I'm gonna see all of Denny's movies from now until, I one of us dies. I'll be watching them. So that's I'm in. But then I'm trying to think of a movie where I was like, all right, the trailer convinced me. I'll go see it. I don't know if there's any like that because even The Last Duel I watched because it's a Ridley Scott film and Ben Affleck's in it. So is Matt Damon. That's kind of
Yeah.
how I go by now. Like the actors, the directors. Is it based on something I enjoy? Is the studio kind of handling it like Sony is? And it's a tough one with Dune. Like I don't even know how to market that fucking movie. There's no right way to do it.
There's not. It's like, hey, did you read this really old book? If you did and you liked it, you might like this movie. Maybe. You probably hate it though, because everybody that likes the book of anything and then they come out with a movie hates the movie.
One of my old coworkers, he's a big fan of the Dune books, and he was like, "Yeah, this one was okay. The movie was okay." And I'm like, "It was
Yeah,
great."
I thought it did a pretty good job, but you have to go in understanding like that's a thing that's had to have happened to you before. That's an understanding you have to have that when you read a incredibly dense book, the movie is not going to be able to cover everything. And then you have other things like The Hobbit where they took one book and made it into three movies and it still kind of worked.
Wasn't that the? Didn't he not want to do three movies? He only wanted to
He
do two or
didn't.
something.
He wanted to do one.
Wow.
And they're like, "No, we're going to make a trilogy." He's like, "It's one book."
He's like, but
And honestly, it's a shorter book than the any three of the Lord of the Rings series.
but there's money to be made.
Exactly. And when there's money to be made, they're going to be like Smog and hoard it all.
That's right. Well, that's great. I enjoyed talking Dune with you. I'm glad you were able to watch it and that we were able to discuss it. And I'm also glad you enjoyed it too, because someone like you said, you've read the book in the past, and this was something that I'm glad I got to talk to someone that enjoyed it too. And it would have been interesting too to get someone that like really hated it, but it was cool to like really talk about some of the actors we liked and how the camera work
Yeah.
was fantastic and some of the intricacies with the different houses and the politics behind it. So I'm glad you got to see it, man.
Yeah, no, I'm glad I got to see it too. I meant to see it before today, but it worked out just fine.
Fresh
But
on your
work
mind.
schedules and whatnot. And yeah, no, it's fresh. You don't have to go back and redo it. And honestly, I will say it made me want to go back and read the books again. So I might do that.
Let me know how that goes because, as you said, I hear they're very dense books. They're not easy to read. So
Hmm.
I'd be curious to see what you thought.
Yeah, no, and I read them when I was, like I said, relatively young. I think I was in either like late middle school or early high school or something like that.
Okay.
Um, so yeah, no, I'm kind of curious because I mean, also I'm a lot more politically minded now than I
Hmm.
was then at the same time. So I think I might get more out of it.
Right. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Otherwise, that has been our Dune review for the latest one, and all spoilers are in. Let us know what you thought of Dune. Head on over to thereasonsimbroke.com. You'll find links to all kinds of socials on there. But otherwise, you can also tag us on Twitter at Spoon Sandwich or at Reasons I'm Broke, and let us know what you thought of the film. Be honest. If you didn't like it, tell us why. If you did, tell us why. Let's head into the Brokehead block, which is what Spoon and I have been doing this week. So, Jared, what have you been playing, watching, reading? What's been going on since the last time you were on?
I watched Dune.
Me too.
No, honestly, let's see. My wife got on a Grey's Anatomy kick. So I've been kind of passively watching that. Um, it's better than I expected,
Are you guys watching it on
oddly.
TV or is that on a streaming service?
Oh, it's on Netflix.
Gotcha. All right.
So she's like binge watching through it, and then like when I'm home at the same time and want to spend time with her, I'm forced to watch it. Um, but I mean, it's it's interesting. I don't think I would have picked it for myself. You know what I mean? But it's kind of like I feel like you kind of feel that way about Lucifer.
Hmm.
Like, Kelly wanted to watch it and you wanted to be in the room with Kelly, so okay.
Yeah, and I fell off. Like we're a
Yeah.
couple where like I don't have to be there to like we'll pick something. Most of the time, I'll be honest with you. This is what ends up happening these days. Is she's like, I'm like,
Hmm.
you want to watch something as we're laying in bed, and she's like, yeah, you can put something on, but I'll probably fall asleep in the next couple of minutes because she starts at like 4 a.m. some mornings,
Yeah.
and I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
and I'll put on like a documentary or I'll put on an anime. I've been watching. Last night we started that Arcane movie with on Netflix or the show.
Okay.
It's Millennial
How
Michael's
is
going
that?
on. I like the first episode a lot, but it is aimed at like a teenage audience, I would say.
Okay.
So you get like the angsty main character, but the animation
Yeah.
is fucking gorgeous. Like it's beautiful
Yeah.
to look at.
Yeah, it looked good. It's on my list of things to watch. I did actually also start watching again. The second season of Lock and Key came out. So
Oh,
I,
so they
I
did do a
started
second
on
season.
that.
All right.
Yes, they did. And I liked the show, honestly, the first season. I watched like the first episode and a half of the second one, so I don't really have much to say about that yet. Um, and yeah, let's see, what else did I do? Oh, obviously I took my kid trick-or-treating and he's the worst trick-or-treater ever.
Why do you say that?
All right, so we took him just around the neighborhood because, he's 5 and I'm not gonna traipse him around. Like when he gets older, I'll teach him how to do it properly with multiple masks and whatnot. Um, but we go up to this table and this lady's sitting there and we're kind of, he's on the younger side, so we took him out a bit early. It was still light out. So there's not a whole lot of kids around, but one, he goes up to this lady and she's got a folding table out and it's got like full-size Snickers and Kit Kats and Milky Ways. And she goes, just grab a few, take whatever you want, because she wanted to go inside and watch the Bucks game.
Hmm.
Um, so he goes up and he's looking and he grabs like a single gummy snake and a little tiny pack of gummy bears and puts them in his bag and says thank you and walks away. And I'm like, what are you doing? What are you doing? There's full-size candy bars. And she
Yeah,
said,
yeah,
take a few. Stop
yeah.
it. You're ruining the economy. Um, and then also he's walking around and like these little tiny girls that are about I don't know his age, but they were about his size. And they're doing the cute little thing with their princess dress and like I like your costume and kind of like twirling it a little bit. And he's like thanks, and then goes right to the candy. And I'm like, buddy, this is why you don't have friends. But no, he had a great time and we got some cute pictures of him in his little dragon outfit.
He's dragging these nuts. Got him. Sorry, it was there.
Yes, you did. You did.
Uh, Leo is our son's trick or treat the same way because Leo would also go up there, grab the one piece, and then they would be like, grab some more. And he would look at us like, is it okay? He would say,
Yeah.
two piece? And we're like, sure, grab a second piece. And then he would pick out one other piece and put it in there. It's
Yeah.
like, thank you. And then he would leave and he'd go to the next one. And
Yeah.
the people that are handing out candy are especially frustrated this year because last year there weren't a lot of trick or treaters. This year
Hmm.
there weren't a lot of trick or treaters. So they've got all this fucking candy that they're like, I don't want to eat. Like
Yeah.
some of them would just be like, here, just, and they would put handfuls in Leo's thing
Yeah,
of
they
like,
were.
like, I don't want to eat
My
this for the next week.
Yeah. My favorite houses where the teenagers were told to hand out the candy, and they're just like, all right, as soon as I get rid of this candy, I can go hang out with my friends. So they're just taking like handfuls and just throwing it in his little bag. And I'm like, okay, that's a little excessive. But yeah, no, I kind of noticed that. And like, but everybody that was out there was also like so happy to see kids
Mm,
because there really wasn't any trick-or-treating last year.
yeah.
Um, I mean, even though it was like we're in Florida, so it was okay to do. It's just people just didn't because everything was still so fresh with the pandemic, I feel like. But this year, everybody's just kind of over it. And they're like, no, no, we're gonna hand out candy.
Hmm.
Did you see some of the videos though of like people with like tube systems set up for trick-or-treaters and whatnot? I'm like, you guys are insane.
Well, like to not get in contact with people but still give out
Yeah.
candy? No, I didn't see
Yeah,
that.
like they'd have it like I saw one guy, he had like basically a PVC pipe from the top of his porch that would shoot candy down at children. And I'm like, you're ridiculous. Like if you're gonna do that, at least put some air pressure behind it so it really shoots out.
I don't know. If I were that frightened of catching COVID, I just wouldn't do it at all. Like I wouldn't want any
Right.
kids around my house at all.
Just turn your porch light off. That's what
Exactly.
everybody does if they don't have candy.
Well, I still want to give out candy though. No, don't give out candy. Like
No,
if you're not
don't give out
gonna,
the candy. Because now I'm concerned that your hands are dirty and that your dirty hands are going to give my kid COVID, even though we know it doesn't live on surfaces.
yeah,
But I mean, there's people out there though. I think I saw a poll that like there was what was it like 40% of people think that if you get COVID, there's a 50% chance you're going to be hospitalized. I'm like, what is
mm.
happening?
There's all kinds of different ideas and different opinions, and
Oh
I've
yeah.
I've seen people that have gotten vaccinated. Like one of Macio's friends he got COVID after getting his first vaccine,
Mhm.
got over it, got his second vaccine, caught COVID again like in September.
Yeah.
So it's like,
Yeah, no,
wait,
and then they call it a breakthrough case. I'm like, it's not really.
hmm
Also, like though you test positive and sometimes you have the sniffles and sometimes you can't breathe. Like there's no telling. There's a lot of other factors that go with your health
yeah,
that kind of do it, but it's really simple. Just talk to your doctor. Like your doctor, the one that treats you. If you don't trust your doctor to give you a good opinion on this, then find a better
hmm
doctor. But stop listening to people on the internet and people on CNN and Fox News and any of them. They're not doctors. And the ones that are doctors are they're not like virologists. They're like, "Oh, I was a neurosurgeon and now I'm a Fox News, contributor." I'm like, "What does that have to do with this? This is not your specialty."
So let me ask you about the candy because I don't know the answer to this, and you might. You're probably you're probably a better dad than I am. So I'll ask you this: how are you distributing the candy for your son? Because now he's got like Leo's got two giant bags full of candy, and like I don't want him to have it all, but I also know that's
Right.
enough candy. Like even if I were to give him one piece per year or per day for the
Yeah.
next year, which wouldn't be good for
Yeah.
him, it
It's
still
like
wouldn't.
10 years.
Yeah.
So my policy on Halloween candy is you can have one piece at a time. Um, there is like, I mean, I'm not gonna just like sit it down in front of him and let him go to town. But I can't eat it, so that kind of like it strengthens the pool a little bit.
hmm
Um, but like if he's good, I'll give him a piece of candy if he asks for it. Like he doesn't ask for it very much, so it's not. But we also like specifically didn't go around to a lot of places. So we didn't end up with like a giant, you know, pillowcase full of candy or anything like
hmm
that. But he did this thing the other day that my wife told me about. He ate his dinner. Well, the beginning of the day, he eats breakfast and he's like, "Hey dad, I'm ready for my after breakfast piece of candy." I'm like, "That's not a thing. That's not you're making it sound like that's a official situation and it's really not. But if you want a piece of candy, you can have a piece of candy. I don't really care." And he's like, "Okay, I would like a piece of candy." And then I give him lunch and he goes, "Hey dad." I'm like, "What?" "I'm ready for my after lunch piece of candy." I'm like, "That's also not a thing." And then he eats it. I go to work. He's eating dinner and he goes to his mom and he's sitting there watching TV with her. And then he just starts kind of like sniffling and like he does this like fake cry thing that sounds like a bad actor crying on screen. And she's like, "What is wrong?" And he's like, "I'm so hungry." And she's like, do you want some chicken nuggets? Like, what do you want? And he's like, "No, I think a piece of candy. I have a piece of
hmm
candy shaped hole right in my stomach." I'm like, "What?" And then because he knows his favorite candy is Kit Kats, and he has one full-size Kit Kat in there. So he goes and he traces on his stomach a square the size of a full-size Kit Kat, and he goes, "I think I have a spot about this big in my stomach." And I'm like, "Just give it to him." Like at that point, you just win. That's
Look at this
adorable.
effort.
Yeah, right? The acting he's putting into this, just give him and then it's gone too, so he can't do it again. But yeah, no, that's kind of how we're handling it. We're just, if he asks for it and he's not being a turd, then all right, yeah,
Yeah.
you can have a piece of candy. Um, every on weekends especially, I still like him to take a nap kind of in the afternoon because if not, he gets really cranky.
Mm,
Even though like five's kind of on that borderline where you don't really need them to take naps according to doctors, but I don't want to deal with a really cranky child around dinner time. So I'm like, you don't have to sleep, just go in your room and relax.
there you go.
So like right before that, I will not give him a piece of candy because then he's gonna go in there and bounce around. But I mean, he runs around a lot, so I don't have too much of an issue with it overall. But yeah, no, I'm also like I'm a horrible example. Like don't use me as the guideline. I don't know what I'm doing. I make it up half the time.
Yeah, Leo does the same thing where he's like, "Oh, I'm still hungry." He says, "I'm still hungry," and it's like, "Okay, do you
Yeah.
want some more?" And then he's like, "Ice cream." You know,
Did you call him the very hungry caterpillar?
should. Yeah, and then
Yeah.
the thing he started doing today, he's never done this before, but we were visiting abuelo y abuela, so my parents, and I was like, "All right, after this episode, we're gonna go home, or we're gonna go visit
Mm-hmm.
mom." And he's like, "Okay," and I'm like, "So after this episode, we're gonna?" And he's like, "We're gonna go." I'm like, "All right." So then, I'll sit there and I'll talk to my parents, and then the episode ends, and I'm like, "Okay, stop the DVR," and then they'll stop it, and it's like, "All right, Leo, it's time to go," and then he'll be like, "No." I'm like, "Well, what did I say? What happened?" And he goes, "I don't remember." And I'm like, "Bullshit!" Like that was the first time he did the "I don't remember." Like I don't
I
recall. Like
don't,
what's
Dad, I don't know. I may or may not have been there. I don't know.
I don't think I would have agreed to that, Dad.
Yeah, exactly. That doesn't sound like something I would say.
So I was like, "Nice
Oh
try, buddy." And
man.
then that's when he was
How
like,
old is he again?
"He's 4."
He's 4. Yeah, it's gonna get worse, let me tell
Oh,
you.
I bet.
They start getting these little personalities and at first it's really cute and then they start like using it against you and
Hmm.
I'm like, What's funny though is now me, like as he gets older, I'm starting to see him try the same tricks that I pulled and I'm
Of
like, I
course.
realize how dumb my parents thought I was because I did the same things that they probably did.
Yeah.
And it didn't work then and it doesn't work now. But yeah, no, it's great.
I'm glad Halloween went well for you. I don't know if I even talked about it on here, but I'm glad you brought it up. And I'm my personal side. I'm still unemployed. I never got a call back, or I haven't yet gotten a call back from that interview that I got.
Oh,
Which,
the place?
yeah, the tea
Are we
place.
saying what kind of place? Okay. I wasn't sure if you didn't
Yeah,
want to
I
mention
won't
what
say
kind of
the
place it was.
business because
Yeah, no, I wouldn't like shout them out or anything. I mean, it's sad that you're not going to be able to use your firebending though.
firebending.
Hmm.
Yeah, just like what's his name, Uncle Iroh.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Zuko with the warming up the teacup. He's a firebender. He's like, I work at a tea shop. I don't know what
Yeah.
you're talking about.
So it's maybe they'll call me later this week, but it's been 6 days, so I'm like I feel like I would have gotten a call one way or the other, even though he said the interview was amazing. Like I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've had those where they're like, "Oh, yeah, no, you'd be great at this role," and they're like, "Yeah, but we're not." The fear is always, especially right now, and I can kind of understand it right now with the labor shortage and whatnot going on, which I don't feel like it's as bad in Florida as it is in other places for sure, but retention is a big problem.
Mm.
So like if they feel like you're not gonna be happy like long term, they're less likely to take you in, even though they're desperate for people, but they want people that are gonna stay.
Yeah, that's something Kelly. She's constantly going through people that don't stick around. They're like, "Oh, this isn't for me," and she'll be like, "But I told them ahead of time that." And it's like, "Yeah, but until they get into the fucking place, they don't really know.
Yeah.
Like they'll say whatever."
Well, it's like we have at work, we've got our order selectors in the warehouse, I'm not going to name. Um and they lure them in with, "Hey, the faster you go, the more money you make." And it sounds great until you realize what's involved in going fast and picking, hundreds of items per order and then getting them to the dock to be shipped out and then going and grabbing another one and doing that for 10 hours in a shift.
Hmm.
The drop off rate is real. Like we hired I think 30 new ones about a month ago and maybe 5 are left out of that
Jeez.
class. Yeah, it's I'm not gonna lie, it's a tough job. I don't want to do that one.
Hmm.
I'd rather just tell them when they're wrong and when they mess up. It's easier. But yeah, no, I mean it's a problem. I'm kind of waiting for my job to see what they're gonna do because there's not to be named company opening a warehouse of similar stuff, kind of like similar situation across the street. And I heard that they're offering for like experienced people
Mm,
like pretty decent money and like a sign-on bonus and whatnot. So I'm kind of waiting to see like, well, what is my company gonna offer as like a retention for like the people that have been here are already trained and are already doing the job?
right.
Because I feel like that's something that's kind of missing with all this stuff is like the people that are staying on are kind of getting hosed where
Hmm.
like I could go somewhere else and they're offering $1,000 sign-on bonus.
That's one of the things that Kelly ran into where they gave a raise to part-time and full-time employees, non-management basically, non-leader roles, and then
Right.
managers didn't get anything. So they got really
Yeah.
upset because they're like,
Yeah.
how come we're not getting a bump? So,
Right. You're still doing more work than you were doing before because,
mhm,
especially when you're short-staffed, they
yep.
got to step up.
So I totally
Yeah.
get it. I totally see the frustrations and I understand. And I like Disney, for example, here in Florida. If you live here, you know someone that works at Disney, and
Yeah,
I've been
that's for sure.
I've been told that managers are quitting left and right. And just like before, you used to have to interview, and you have to go through this process to become a manager. You have to go through three
Mm.
different interviews. You have to go through these rounds, and then maybe they'd promote you. But now they're just
Right.
like, you want to be manager? All right, here you go. Like they're just anyone. Go
Yeah.
up,
Hey,
go
you've
up.
been here for 6 months. Do you want to run this whole place?
Which makes me wonder, and let me ask you if you've gone through this. I wonder how poorly most places are being run because of that. Like how
Oh,
much
it's
shit is
awful.
falling through the cracks.
It's awful. All right. Like, even at places like that are, I'm sorry, dead simple to run, like McDonald's. Like, it's bad. I went to one the other day because, like, my Liam wanted a Happy Meal. And I'm like, okay, well, let's go get a Happy Meal, whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to go anywhere else to get me food. So I'm like, I'll just get a double quarter pounder, whatever. Like, I'm really not a McDonald's fan, but I'm like, I'll suck it up, whatever. And I go there and they hand me a McRib, and I'm like, what the hell is this? I'm like, this is the wrong sandwich. They're like, oh, well, what did you order? I'm like, don't you have that information? Like, who are you hiring? And to me, it comes down to management because they're the ones responsible for hiring and training these people.
Today I got my oil changed, and I have to look under my hood actually now that I think about it. But like the guy that was being, he had to have been new, but he like didn't know how to take out the air filter. He didn't know how to put it back on. He was, that thing, that's the metal thing that they pull out and they show you like, here's your oil. He pulled
Yeah,
that
the
out.
dipstick.
Yeah, the dipstick, and he showed me it. And I'm like, all right, great. And then he was like, oh, like he didn't know where it went afterward. And
Oh
I
God.
saw him put it back in at a different angle than he pulled it
Oh
out. Like,
no.
pulled it out straight up and then he put it in like horizontally. And I'm like, where did he put
Yeah,
it?
check that.
So,
Check that. Check that. I will say I did work in an oil change very briefly. In between other jobs, and I got in trouble like my third day because it was a little like the little Suzuki cars that are like kind of look like toys.
yes.
Um, their hood thing, like the little stand that it goes on, was at the back of the hood because the hood was like so short. But it was like just this little thing because it was like right by the hinge. And I'm like, okay, well, this is like the same time that like hydraulic hoods were a thing. So like you would just open it and it didn't have the latch. So my brain, when I finished doing their oil change, was it's fine. And I slammed it and like bent the stupid thing like in half.
Oh man.
So I mean, like I get it. Like you can do stupid things there, but yeah, no, definitely try to find that dipstick. Hopefully it didn't like fall down into the engine compartment somewhere.
God, no, I hope not. I hope that he just put it in at a weird angle and it's where it's supposed to be, but I'm gonna check that tonight.
Yeah, no, definitely take a look. How do you screw like it's the yellow one. It goes
Yeah.
back in the same thing. The red one is for transmission fluid and the yellow one is for oil.
I just stuck it
No.
into where the fan goes, I think. Oh no.
Oh no. You start your car and it sounds like a bike with a playing card in the back wheel. Oh no.
Oh man, but this has been great, Jared. I really appreciate you being on this week. And go ahead and let them know, even though it's on screen and it's also in the description of the audio episode, let them know where they can find you and where they can chat with you.
I am on Twitter at Spoon Sandwich. And actually, I think I'm gonna put it in my Twitter profile. I started making like slightly offensive T-shirts in case anybody's interested. So far there's kind of a political tinge. But and if you don't mind, I think this Friday is gonna be my first live stream of my show
Awesome.
where I'm gonna talk about politics and things like that. And my first guest is actually gonna be Alex.
Gotcha. Cool.
So that'll be on. I'll put it out on Twitter and I'll post it in the Discord if you're in there as well. If
What's the name of it in
Daniel's
case
okay.
people want to look it up?
The name of the show is going to be Dangerous Tangents.
Okay.
Which is kind of the most appropriate name I could think of. But so we're going to be there. It's going to be on YouTube and then it'll also be posted to Rumble if you're more into like the alternative video platforms.
Gotcha. I haven't heard of Rumble, but that might not be a bad idea just to cross post it as many places as possible. Is that like a secondary YouTube or is that mainly politically based?
It's basically a secondary YouTube. Right now, I would say it's overrun with political content,
Hmm.
because they're very much more on like the free speech aspect of it and less about like censoring things that they don't agree with.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they actually just merged with a company called Locals, which I don't know if you know who Dave Rubin is, but he's a political commentator. He
Yeah.
was on the Young Turks. He started Locals in response to Patreon banning Sargon of Akkad and a few other people for their political views. And it's a very similar platform, except it's kind of like Patreon mixed with Facebook, where like you can have like comments, people in more of a community for subscribers. And they actually just Rumble just bought them as their kind of like subscription model to help creators. So it's kind of building up steam, which I'm kind of excited about because I'd really love a good solid alternative to YouTube
Mm-hmm.
and the stuff that they, as you can see, won't
Yeah.
tolerate. Um, but right now I won't be live streaming on there because their live streaming is kind of in beta. As they kind of build up a little bit more infrastructure. And I think they actually are moving their headquarters to Florida,
Ooh, nice.
of all places. I think they're going to be down there in Miami, if I remember correctly. But they have live streaming, but they have different creator packages, and the free one is ad supported. And then as if people want to start, giving me money and subscribing, I'd be more than happy to put it into that. And once we get up to like that $25 level, I would be more than happy to stream on Rumble as
Mm.
well. I've got like this whole plan that I'm kind of holding my breath on. To kind of see how everything goes because it might go good, it might go bad, who knows these days. But I figure, you know what, if I'm gonna sit there and complain about stuff, I might as well do it on the internet.
That's exciting, man. I know you've had a setup at your place. You should posted the picture on Discord, and it's
Oh
cool that
yeah.
you're like putting out something now that it's like things have seemed to have lined up, and you've got a show, you've got your first guest set up or co-host, whatever it might be, and you've got the name of your show and all that. So that's awesome, man. Yeah, definitely post it on Discord and like you said, Dangerous Tangents will be the name of it in case someone wants to search it after the fact, or if they want to. Is the YouTube channel up now so that they can like subscribe ahead of time?
Um, you know what? That would be a great idea. By the time this posts, it will be.
Boom. There you go.
That's a great idea. Yeah, no, that'll be going up this week, and then the first live stream will be Friday, probably around 10 o'clock p.m. Eastern time.
Awesome. Thank you again, Jared, for being on and for I'm excited for you to get that show going. That's awesome. I always like to see the others get creative and enjoy some of their stuff. Lazy Gaming Guys are great, but I want to see some of your own stuff if the other hosts are creative too. So I'm excited to see
Yeah,
that.
absolutely, and hopefully I can round them into coming on my show as well.
There you go.
We can just trade around.
To everyone else on the other side, I appreciate you. If this is your first podcast, first episode of this show, thanks for sticking around till the end. If you head on over once again to thereasonsimbroke.com, you will find links to everywhere you can find us. You can ask questions. You can also follow a lot of the hosts on our Discord channel, which is in the description of every episode. That's the Discord lounge. You've got Jared, Bobby, the Lazy Gaming Guys in there. There's a special collector's corner that is great. So if you collect comics, action figures, Sonic the Hedgehog merch, Sonic Treasure Hunting Sonic is in there. Share it on there, and all of us will admire the pickups, and we're all kind of collectors here. So That's Discord once again in the description. But otherwise, thank you once again for joining us this week. I've been Daniel, joined by Jared and Brokehead Core. All will be well. And I do have to ask you, I'll give you some time. I'll answer it first. That way you have your answer, unless you know it right away. But it's based on that meme that I posted on Discord. If you had to put your hand in the box, and it's going to be something
No.
that you're gonna have either disgust or discomfort or pain. Mine's gonna be it's like that one Fear Factor show, but it would be like a thing of roaches, like just a ton of fucking roaches, like those big
Mm.
fucking ones. Even though in Florida they're the exact same ones live here, and you have to kill them sometimes.
Oh
That
yeah.
would be like, I don't know if I could handle like the 2 minutes or whatever he had his fucking hand in the box. I don't know if that needle would be going right into my fucking neck. But the other thing I thought of too, and I don't know if anyone's made this meme yet, and maybe I should do it, but have it be like the Halloween, like, oh, those are eyeballs, and it's like grapes that are peeled, or like, oh, those are guts, and it's strawberry compote, and
Oh
I'm like,
yeah, strawberry
ugh.
compote and like gummy worms or something like that. Yeah. Oh man, what would mine be?
Spaghetti?
I don't
No,
know.
those are
Roaches is
brains.
pretty good.
Is there an animal
Like
you're like,
knowing what it
ooh,
actually honestly,
wasps?
well, yeah, but honestly I'd rather that than roaches for some reason. Like I'm not afraid of getting stung. I'm not like allergic or anything.
Uh-huh.
So like that's never bothered me. Um I don't know, like live shrimp would probably be I got a thing about shrimp.
I
I
did
don't
not
like
expect
them.
that.
They're creepy little legs and whatnot. So like having to put my hand in there and like you could probably just put something that crawls around and has spiky little legs and like tell me it's shrimp and it would work just as well. But yeah, I don't know. Like the soggy soggy sink food is like pretty